Jesus said, "I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The hired hand, who is not the shepherd and does not own the sheep, sees the wolf coming and leaves the sheep and runs away. And the wolf snatches them and scatters them. The hired hand runs away because a hired hand does not care for the sheep. I am the good shepherd. I know my own, and my own know me, just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father. And I lay down my life for the sheep. I have other sheep that do not belong to this fold. I must bring them also, and they will listen to my voice. So there will be one flock, one shepherd. For this reason, the Father loves me, because I lay down my life in order to take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down of my own accord. I have power to lay it down, and I have power to take it up again. I have received this command from my Father, and this is the gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Christ. Please be seated. I know many of us, myself included, are getting to the age where it's getting hard to have a conversation in a crowded restaurant, especially if the music is blaring in the background. I won't ask for a show of hands, I know. Bruce and I, we've even declined going to certain restaurants because we know that the conversation will be impossible because there is too much noise to hear each other, even if we're sitting close to each other. Unless you know American Sign Language or can read lips, I'd say that hearing is pretty much essential to having a conversation. But there is something more important to having a conversation, especially a meaningful one that goes beyond hearing, and that is listening. Listening is different than hearing, you know. For example, I hear what Bruce says to me all the time, but as he will attest to, I don't always listen. And I will add, he does the same thing. And of course, this has led to the occasional discussions on the importance of putting down the iPhone or turning away from the laptop. I'll let you guess which one does which, in order to really pay attention to what the other is saying. As I think any married couple will attest to, we're not always so good at doing that, are we? It isn't that we don't care what our spouse is saying to us. We probably would care and would be truly interested, but it's hard to set aside our distractions and give our full attention when we're not sure it's going to be worth our effort. And yes, I am being brutally honest here. If I'm engrossed in something on Facebook and Bruce starts telling me about something he was just reading on his phone, it may be something I'd actually want to know about, like maybe a cat story. But I'm so involved in my own little world on Facebook that I find it hard to set it aside and listen to him. Which is why we are sheep in need of the Good Shepherd. Because all of us do that. And not just with each other, but let's face it, we do it with God too. Now, for those of you who have already tuned me out and are thinking about where you're going for brunch this morning, let me gently try to get your attention again and say that maybe something that I'm about to say might be worth your while. Or maybe not. You'll have to decide that for yourself. But you can't do that if you're just sitting there hearing me but not listening. Okay, so maybe now you are listening. I might have gotten your attention. Hang on with me a few more minutes if you can. I know you're still hearing me, but I also know that your stomach is probably growling a bit. Mine is, luring you into thoughts of that brunch. Let the brunch be like the hired hand to you, ready to snatch you away from the shepherd. In other words, try to ignore your hunger pangs and listen for a few minutes. Okay, So Jesus is our good shepherd. As I said before, it's not a metaphor that I think is terribly relevant for us today. I don't think any of us here are sheep farmers, right? Yeah, I see no hands going up. When Bruce and I lived up north, as I mentioned, and I would preach on this Sunday, I'll be honest, I was always a bit nervous about it. Because we actually did have sheep farmers in the congregation, remember? The Shealy boys? And inevitably, I would get some detail or other wrong, and they would gently call me out on it after the service. So thoughts of the hired hand and the wolf, well, they don't resonate with us quite the same way they did with Jesus' original hearers, right? But there is a part of this parable that even if you know nothing about sheep or shepherding, can at least make sense to you. And that, my friends, is listening to the shepherd's voice. So, sheep, dumb as many people say they will at least recognize their shepherd's voice. They have to, because their very lives depend on it. They will get lost, I've been told, by those Shealy boys, because sheep are prone to wander. And if danger approaches, like in the form of a hungry wolf, they better be able to hear that shepherd calling to them, gathering them into the safety of the fold, or they will become the wolf's dinner. But the sheep have to do more than hear the shepherd's voice when the wolf approaches. They have to listen to the shepherd and obey. They have to be able to discern the shepherd's voice above the terrified bleating of their sheep colleagues as he is telling them where to go to get to safety. So maybe sheep aren't so dumb after all. Maybe we're the dumb ones. Or to make it more personal, maybe I'm the dumb one. Because my good shepherd has on many occasions called my name and tried to get me to safety. But have I always listened to him? Or have I instead listened to other voices? And what are those other voices saying to me? Well, some of them say that what I'm being tempted to do isn't really that bad. And then, chomp, one bite from the wolf. And some of those other voices, they distract me. And they may say something like, you're not good enough. And then, chomp, there it goes again, that wolf. Chomp goes the wolf one more time when I allow my prejudice, my fear, or my pride to override my humanity, and I judge, exclude, or fear someone who is just different from me. And that leads to another point in this parable that I think we need to, shall I say, listen to. Our good shepherd informs us that in his words, I have other sheep that do not belong to this fold. Wonder what he meant by that. Other sheep that aren't us? Well, historically, theologians have taken this to refer to the Gentiles, whom Jesus said he would also bring into his fold. And maybe that is what he did mean then. But I've never thought that Jesus' words could be restricted to first century Palestine. If they were, why would any of us today follow him? So what could his words, I have sheep that do not belong to this fold, mean for us today? Well, I believe this question is crucial because of what he says next. I must bring them also, and they will listen to my voice. Not just that they will hear it and let it bounce right off their ears. They will listen, which is more than I can say that I've consistently done in my life. So who are these other sheep, and why do they matter? Well, they matter because, as Jesus goes on to say, there will be one flock, one shepherd. So whoever these other sheep are, it's probably pretty important that we learn who they are and why they are able to listen to the Good Shepherd when we ourselves aren't so good at it, because, get this, they're about to become our next-door neighbors in the fold. You still with me? You in the back, I think I saw you open one of your eyes. Kidding. So I'll recap. Jesus is saying that he has sheep of another fold that he has to go and bring in, and we'll all have to live together as one big happy flock. So, as Sesame Street used to sing, who are the people in your neighborhood? In other words, who isn't here right now that Jesus says he needs to include among us? Well, take a look around you. Go ahead, I'll wait. We all look pretty much the same, don't we? And I'm not saying that's necessarily wrong. We do live in a pretty homogeneous neighborhood, don't we? Oh, I know that we would welcome someone of color coming to worship with us. I believe that totally. I have no doubt about it. But maybe that's not the only way that people can exist in a different fold from us. Our society has become extremely polarized. And I know I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. And I think most of us, people of faith, are at least a bit uncomfortable with that polarization. We'd all like to have unity and harmony, right? So why don't we? Well, Jesus knew then and now that we are all different. Different in color, age, gender identity, faith or no faith, politics, and many, many other distinctions. And yet somehow, he had plans to unite us as one flock with one shepherd. I don't know if his ancient hearers thought that that was a tall order, but in my 21st century ears, this sounds like an almost impossible dream. We get along in polite company, so long as we don't have to listen to, well, you fill in the blank. And there's that word again, listen. You see, I think perhaps our Good Shepherd was making a point here when he said that those other sheep, the ones not yet with us in the fold, would listen to his voice. And I suggest that perhaps he was trying to teach us that if those other sheep could be persuaded to not just hear him, but to listen to him, then maybe, and I know this is a stretch, maybe we could learn from them how to listen to our mutual Good Shepherd too. Which I know is hard to do when we're clamping our hands against our ears to dampen the noise of their difference. And that's true whatever side you're on of whatever issue is at hand. We don't listen to each other because we're so focused on the restless and fretful bleating of all of us. We run to and fro in the fold, worried that if those people get in, they might bring the wolf with them. Well, I'm sorry to have to tell you this, but I'm afraid the wolf's already here in the fold among us. Because the wolf is the personification of one word: fear. Fear of loss, fear of change, fear of destruction of ourselves, of our values, of everything that we hold dear. We are so afraid of losing what we have in what we believe to be the safety of our fold that we don't even hear the voice of the shepherd warning us that the wolf is among us and that the wolf isn't the other sheep he's bringing in. The wolf is fear. The other sheep's fear and our own. Fear will devour us if we let it. And it certainly will stop our ears from hearing the loving warning of the Good Shepherd. So what are we to do with this? How can we hope to be rid of the wolf? And those newcomers, if they're not the wolf, still they're different. What are we to do with them? Should we make them like us? Can we even do that at all, even if we think we should? And above all, how are we to love them and welcome them into the fold that is, after all, not our own, but the property of the Good Shepherd? Well, the answer to this lies in the last part of the passage. Jesus says it pretty bluntly. For this reason the Father loves me, because I lay down my life in order to take it up again. It is for this that Jesus willingly laid down his life. For this that he laid across the gate of the sheepfold and allowed the wolf to devour him. He allowed the prejudiced fear of the religious authorities and the Roman oppressors to ravage his body, spilling his precious blood, so that he could once and for all deal with the wolf. No longer do we need to live in fear of change, of the other, or of anyone stealing away what we have. Jesus has already conquered the wolf. And in doing that, he has thrown wide the gate of the sheepfold, allowing those other sheep who listen to his voice to come in and find safe pastures to graze in alongside of us. Because he has dealt completely with the wolf, he can claim his rightful place as our one shepherd of the one flock. And what that looks like for us today in the 21st century polarized society that we're in, well, I believe in time it will look like white sheep, gray sheep, black sheep, brown sheep, sheep of all colors and no colors of all of us together in one fold, listening to him. Listening to him as if our very lives depended on it, because they do. Listening to his words of love that overcome everything that divides us. Now, will that happen today or tomorrow, or even in our lifetime? Who knows? But we are people of hope, of resurrection. And as such, I hope you will join me in looking forward and even working toward the day when that other flock of sheep will indeed feel welcome in the Good Shepherd's fold. Our Good Shepherd will guide and protect us if we just listen to him.